Our presenter today, Michael Vermeer, is the Industrial Software and Services Manager of Industrial Network Infrastructure at Panduit Corporation. With an engineering degree from Purdue University and a master's degree from DePaul University, Mike has spent 12 years at Panduit learning from his customers and building new offerings to help them improve their business. He is currently focused on software and IoT products that deliver customer confidence in an operational uptime. We would like to take a few moments before we begin to introduce Colin Hammond with CSIA. Colin?
Thank you, Jan. My name is Colin Hammond. Welcome, everyone. For those of you who are unfamiliar with CSIA, we are the only trade association focused on advancing the system integration industry. Our vision is to ensure that manufacturing and process industries everywhere have access to low-risk, safe, and successful application of automation technology. To accomplish this, CSIA supports system integrator companies in becoming better businesses. We offer guidance to improve integrator effectiveness with our best practices and benchmarks manual, an open forum to network and learn from other companies, and opportunities to market within the industry. As our members continue to improve their management skills, they can begin to work towards becoming CSIA certified and industry standard in SI business excellence. CSIA membership offers members access to resources needed to attain its business goals. These benefits include networking opportunities at the annual executive conferences, marketing toolkits, educational materials, and the Industrial Automation Exchange, an online buyer's guide and community that connects end users with system integrators and industry suppliers. Clients in all industries are now seeking integrators with the CSIA certification alongside ISO. They recognize CSIA certified integrators' commitment to industry standards and business acumen. As a result, being certified can shorten the sales cycle. It also means the supplier's technology being well represented and greatly reduces the risk of project failure. CSIA certified system integrators generally run better businesses. CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange is the premier automation guide featuring system integrators and suppliers who provide industrial, manufacturing, and process automation solutions. For integrators and suppliers, it's a place to market their expertise. Clients will find white papers, case studies, capabilities, contact information, and engage in conversation directly with CSIA members. And for more information on CSIA certification, members, or the exchange, please contact us at 847-686-2245 or info@staff.controlsys.org. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand the call back over to Mike.
Thanks, Colin. Again, this is Mike Vermeer, Manager of Software and Services for our industrial team at Panduit. And I want to talk a little bit about how you can leverage Panduit's expertise and add to the scope of your services in planning and delivering the industrial network tied to the projects that you're delivering. What we're going to talk about today is areas where Panduit is driving market demand for deliberate network planning that follows a standards-based approach to reduce implementation risks. Panduit's partners in our Panduit One Partner Program can market and deliver these Panduit certified services that address this opportunity. What we're going to do is start with the standards that apply and provide an overview of what those standards are and why, before diving into assessments and a way to deliver assessments across the physical infrastructure covering each of these standards. And then we'll get into the actual network design, both the process as well as the scope covered in those designs to make what's often a complex and challenging process a lot more easy. And some of the resources we'll discuss to help you move forward in that journey. So the reason why we start with standards is because the experts and manufacturers across the industry get together and develop these standards to define the function of the product itself, the product as it needs to be deployed, to allow interoperability across the entire industry, as well as long-term performance. When we're looking at a physical network infrastructure, the foundation for the implementation is TIA 568, which governs the application of telecommunication cabling. We're looking at the configuration of balanced twisted pair Ethernet, as well as fiber optic cabling and the connectors associated with that cabling. But beyond the cable and connector configuration, we're also looking at distance limitations, the network and physical architectures, performance characteristics, and installation requirements. There are levels of component standards looking at the individual devices, as well as how those components are pulled together in common standards, as well as other standards that focus on implementation in the specific commercial environment or data center environment, or what we're going to be focusing on a little more in the industrial environment. So TIA 1005 is a premise standard that builds on 568, but adds consideration for industrial premises. It uses the same type of architecture, looking at the distribution layer, the access layer of the network, and all of the foundation standards of 568 apply. However, there are additional specifications around, for example, harsh connectivity, allowing 4-pin or 8-pin circular connectors for 100 megabit or gigabit performance in a water washdown type application. What's a little more common are the guidelines for evaluating environments. You're probably familiar with the acronym MICE, M-I-C-E, talking about the mechanical environment for shock, vibration, or liability to be pinched. Ingress with water and dust, as well as climatic and chemical environments, looking at things like caustic environments, but also liability to condensation and what that condensation could result in the environment. And electromagnetic effects, since especially in the industrial environment, there's a lot higher risk of EMI interference for the low voltage cabling. So those are two specific sets of standards, but really there are a lot more that I'm not diving deep into, but looking at grounding and bonding, TIA 607 and some others, looking at the power applications and pathways and the actual consolidation cabinets for the network equipment, and data cabling and the administration of the environment. So there are a lot of standards to pull together. We also need to look at code, and there are a number of best practices that are pulled together. And what we do is invest in BICSI corporate membership and utilize the Registered Communications Distribution Designer certification to help pull all these together. This adds in specific training around newer standards and applications, and includes continuous classroom and field learning. So this is how we can maintain visibility to all of the standards and pull them together for the benefit of our customers. And this is really how we're basing our Panduit certified services and validation of the work that our partners are doing. So when we look at the standards, we can see situations like this, which are common issues in network implementation, and begin to classify and identify these risks and propose solutions when we see the specific situations that are included. So we can see these pictures and see that the implementations represent a suboptimal installation. But when we start classifying them by standards, we can see specific issues around exposed copper pairs, unprotected fiber entry into a cabinet, limited device accessibility because of how devices are stacked on top of each other in the ad hoc implementation in the upper right, or issues around not having any defined pathways or slack management, or strain relief or bend radius management. These are all areas where, when you're looking at the standards, they help classify and point to the risk or potential risk associated with the physical implementation. Now, the challenge is, how do we help clients move forward to have a best-in-class implementation? A typical reason why systems end up the way that, like this image or the ones before, is that the clients are scoping two things especially. They're scoping in their projects the effort and equipment and integration required to implement their system, the system integration required. They're scoping and budgeting for the physical cabling installation, but they're not typically scoping the physical design, the physical implementation of how those things need to go together. They're doing, if you will, a logical design. They're doing a physical install, which is the cabling install up to the structured patch panel, but they're not considering how these systems interact in the physical environment at the network consolidation point. And the question is, are they happy with the results? Do they want it this way? Do they want to keep it the way it is? And our research indicates that they aren't happy with it, but they're interested in getting help from the industry with communicating the better path and communicating that to get approval to add this as a scope to their project. So this is what we want to help the industry, is provide the tools required so that you can communicate to the client, so the clients can communicate to their approvers a better way to implement the physical infrastructure. Now, as we discuss this, we realize that the clients need more than physical infrastructure. Clearly, they're looking for an effective rollout of, for example, the manufacturing execution systems that are running the plant, from a legacy system on coaxial cable to a modern Ethernet-based system. They're looking for perhaps IT or OT convergence or improving the network security in the plant or across the enterprise. They're looking for adding capabilities for remote monitoring and remote management across dozens of plants that point back to their headquarters location where they're maintaining. So when they're implementing a network, they're not looking only at the network. They're looking at a broader scope implementation, and the network is something that's required in order to get that done. What many customers have begun to see is that the network executed well will pay dividends on these goals with improved security, improved uptime, and improved maintainability and documentation, so that not only for the initial debug and implementation, but also maintainability and growth of the system over time, they're going to get a lot more life out of the system that's deployed. So what we want to do is help our partners, help our clients through, first, the assessment, evaluating the current network infrastructure conditions, and then going to the design, planning for new implementation and future infrastructure needs. So often before they decide to invest, they need to assess their current state. And once they're ready to invest, the design phase will take them through every part of the implementation of the physical infrastructure that fills the gap between the logical design and actually pulling the cable. So Panduit's investing in our Panduit One ecosystem to deliver these complete assessments and designs. What this looks like is a designated scope of service that can be promoted as an addition to your project. There are 3 types of service. 2 of them are assessment services that focus on basic information about the client's infrastructure and the devices connected to the network. This is not a logical assessment. That logical network evaluation can be delivered in parallel to these certified assessments. The design service focuses on helping the client plan out the physical implementation of that logical design. It doesn't include the logical network design. That's often necessary and done in parallel to the physical infrastructure designs. They're really fairly different capabilities. They can run in parallel, but for example, where you're going to want an RCDD for the physical infrastructure or related physical infrastructure expertise, there's other certifications such as Cisco CCNA to do the logical design of the network. For each of these systems, as our partners are delivering, Panduit is providing back office training and validation. So our partners are doing the logical as their core, or maybe they're doing the physical cable install as the core, and they can add on the physical assessment, documentation assessment, and certified design to that scope, and Panduit can provide back office support, training, and validation on that specific project. However, since this is typically not core for our partner community, what we also can do is deliver these services as a subcontractor to our partner community. That's as a way to make sure that the clients get the full capability as necessary. When you as a partner don't have the full capability or comfort level on delivering the assessment or design, you can also always call on us to do that. So now we'll go into the assessments, the 2 assessments that are available to drive awareness of the client's infrastructure and really move them forward to a better path in their infrastructure. Before we do that, it's important to understand how the client is positioned today. Are they implementing a new manufacturing line in an existing facility or an additional building that's already budgeted? Are they implementing a new technology, such as a software upgrade or control system upgrade or quality system improvement? Do they have no plans but realize there's risk or are unhappy with the current state of their infrastructure? It's important to realize that if they already have plans and a budget around moving forward with something, there's no need to start with an assessment, because the design process will identify what needs to move forward, what needs to happen for that client. So you can advance directly to the design phase if the customer already has plans and a budget around implementing an improvement or an improved system. However, if they don't have that budget, or if they're aware of potential risks but they don't know details and need details around what those risks are, if they have desire to fix but they need information around their system, the physical infrastructure assessment can help. In this assessment, what our partners would do is go on site and perform an analysis of that deployed infrastructure, taking plenty of pictures of, for example, the grounding situations at the site, pathways and how those pathways are used in the transition from pathways to consolidation points, the cabinets used, and ingress and other mice related issues around the cabinets, data cabling, whether it's shielded or not, and its proper application, proper termination, looking at the labeling, and how each of the connections are identified from one connection to another. So this again can occur parallel to a logical network evaluation. What the client would receive from an assessment like this is a report that shows representative pictures for each of the areas that are assessed. We look at these 7 areas that also follow the BICSI manual and the physical infrastructure areas for concern. With those pictures, we'll describe verbally what those issues are and ask you, when you're walking through, to identify for example, the cable media and terminations. Are they meeting the requirements, or is it not? Are the requirements not being met, or the requirements partially being met? And then we'll provide a rating for each of these areas to the client, so they understand how they fit and where, if they're going to invest dollars, where they can get the biggest bang for their dollar. And then with each of these ratings, we'll provide recommendations around what to do to move forward. For example, In one case, the cable media is okay, but the terminations are suboptimal, and so we recommend re-terminating horizontal cabling. In another case, grounding and bonding doesn't really exist, so recommend all metallic elements bonded to the network grounding system. So providing the recommendations on a path to move forward. That's what the client receives. How our partner community can deliver the certified assessment, first of all, is simply to attend training, where we'll walk through the specific areas to be addressed through our design and deploy training. We'll help our clients understand what to look for as they walk through a facility from the physical infrastructure standpoint. Then we provide bulletins that allow you to brand this specific service as something that you deliver to the client. This is something available to all our Panduit One partners. And then the delivery process, as we go forward, we provide you a process to go through the assessment. For example, this form will give you a place to identify the detailed observations for each of the areas that you're assessing, score them, provide reference to photograph numbers, recommendations for remediation. This then comes to Panduit and we'll build that complete report, performing all the back office functions for you, and deliver your branded assessment report that you can deliver to the client. This is typically a fairly high impact report when the client is motivated to move and can give them the tools that they need to move forward with implementation of an improved physical infrastructure. The second assessment service that our partners can deliver address documentation challenges. Our partners typically do not, or our clients that we talk to typically do not have effective documentation for the network, especially as it extends out to the plant floor in IoT applications, touching the machines in the plant, touching the systems that are actually running production. They don't even often know what devices they have. They're maintaining typically a spreadsheet of IP addresses, but they're not always 100% confident that that's up to date. And they don't know then if those devices are connected and communicating at any given point in time. So the documentation capability is a separate assessment capability using Panduit's IntraView software, which allows a client to receive a picture of their network and all the devices connected on their network, where our partner performs that configuration, or again works with Panduit to perform the configuration of the software to scan the client's network. This discovers all of the IP assets in the plant that are connected and provides the client that list of IP assets, as well as identification of where some of those devices that are connected to the Ethernet network may be showing intermittent failures or communication errors on the network. This service can be delivered in a couple simple steps. We can provide a one-time use assessment license via our partner portal and some of the online request tools. You can also purchase an appliance fully configured and ready to deploy on the plant. That can be moved from one site to another, and that will be a perpetual use that you as our partner can use at any time. And you can have one or multiple of these, but it's a perpetual use tool that you can then install and configure on site. Once it's configured, the software will work automatically, and you can provide an export of the documentation directly from the software. Optionally, once the assessment is done, if you want to have that continuing engagement with the customer, this is something that can be deployed permanently at the customer site that you're working with, as a method to maintain support for your client system. So you can VPN into the client's network, and with that access, you can view the software capability and tool and monitor and manage that for your client. So that helps the documentation aspect and challenge of the customer's need, and that will also provide some visibility into the state of your client's network, the number of dropouts that your client is getting on the devices all the way at the edge of the network, in addition to what we saw originally, which is more of a visual evaluation of how the network is structured from a standards perspective. That shows us the assessments. Now, once the client is ready to move forward on the design, we want to make it as easy as possible for the client to, you remember the pictures shown earlier, not very well planned, to get them to a well-planned industrial network or enterprise network. So we've seen that there are a number of aspects to consider that are often left off. What we want to do is provide a simple roadmap for, first of all, communicating and then implementing the physical design. And I can't overemphasize communication. Due to the gap that exists in the market, what we've seen is again, clients looking at the logical system design and the physical pulling the cable, but not the design where the pulling the cable meets the physical equipment or the logical equipment. So Panduit's developed and is promoting the concept of the complete physical infrastructure design through the Panduit Certified Design Program. This is an offering delivered exclusively through Panduit and our Panduit One ecosystem. It can be delivered by any Panduit One partner. And we can also deliver a detailed sheet that you can sub-brand as your own, or you can brand as your own, to help communicate to your client the additional scope that you can provide or are planning to provide. We support this, and I'll describe that, with back-end review by registered communication distribution designers, engineers who are highly skilled in this specific area, to help ensure all areas are covered, with recommendations given to you where appropriate to improve your system. So we're doing this because we realize that your competitors may be bidding a much more basic scope of service. They may only be bidding the pulling the cable and terminating it. And this gives you the opportunity to both meet them and what they're bidding for the project, but also communicate to your clients what could be missing and what you can add to that bid to deliver pathway routes and cabinet layout, cable and connectivity specification, mechanical ingress, chemical and electromagnetic evaluation and considerations, the point-to-point connection map and documentation, enclosure elevations and compatibility. So we want to provide the tools for you to communicate to your clients what can be delivered. So the phase one for delivering this type of service is we're going to start with the MICE risks, the risks in the environment, inherent in the environment, that might need to be avoided or considered specifically. There might be an area with chemical washdown or high EMI or high temperature. We want to look at those first, so that as we define the pathways and as we define where our network consolidation points, we can work around those areas or be mindful of those areas. So we'll start with looking at the cable routing or identifying the network consolidation points and where they're going. You might have a computer room with space available, or maybe there is no space available and you need to put a NEMA 12 enclosure on the plant floor. Once that's defined, we can define the cable routing between those consolidation points. There might be existing pathways that may need to be evaluated whether they're suitable, or you might be designing entirely new cable racks for the pathways across the environment. Once that's defined, we can go one layer deeper in detail. The connection diagram helps clearly identify what devices connections go to which cabinets. And then the cable schedule identifies for each connection what cable is used, considering the environment, the pathway, the distance, etc. This is really important also in conjunction with the logical design to identify what cable and connectivity is working with which switches and edge devices. And then finally, once that's identified, we can go to define the elevation for how all the equipment is going to be mounted, as well as the pathways, how the pathways are going to connect into these consolidation points and terminate into the equipment, considering all of the areas that we looked at before. And finally, once this is identified, we can come up with a material list that shows specifically what product is required in what applications, considering the compatibility between the different products, and if possible, where possible, identifying quantities as applicable. So we go through this. It can be done in multiple phases. What we prefer to do is break this up for the client's benefit into at least 2 phases. And this is both for the client's benefit as well as for your benefit, because when you are getting into the elevation, the connectivity map, etc., before the pathways and enclosures are defined, often there's rework required on those elevations and connectivity, and we want to minimize the rework to minimize cost to the client and minimize frustration for you. So what we recommend is first identifying those enclosures, the network consolidation points, as well as the pathways, get that approved specifically, and then move on to elevations and connectivity. Of course, you want to make room in each of these phases for client approval and updates, and helpful to view it in a way that helps the client understand that the sooner they can get an approval on the first phase, we can move to the next phase. And this is definitely a delivery schedule that's compressible based on both approval and updates, as well as the more information that the client provides to you up front, the fewer unknowns and lower risk overall. So this is just an example of how the physical infrastructure element of the project can be deployed. It's also important to understand this is happening in parallel with a lot of other things. So the more information on the logical network design that's available before the intent is finalized, or before the pathways and enclosures are defined, also minimizes rework across the system. And this is why it's valuable for us to look to the partner ecosystem to add this capability into, say, a logical network design or a physical infrastructure deployment type project. So how can your design be certified? And this is a design that you can deliver to the client. The first step, again, Panduit, through our Panduit 1 program, has a highly evolved design training to help you understand the specific elements of design that need to be considered for the physical infrastructure. Attending this training gives you that basis, and then going through the design process, there's a certified design review part number, and then a submittal form to submit the system layout, the environmental evaluation, the one-line diagram for the project, enclosure details, elevations, etc. So you can submit that to Panduit, and typically with a 1 to 2 week turnaround, we can walk through the project with you and provide our certification statement for that specific project. The Panduit certified design is a project by project design, so that you can submit the physical infrastructure design that you're delivering to your client to us. We'll review it with you, provide you the certification statement as a way that you can bring to the client to say, Panduit stands behind. We have third-party validation that our physical infrastructure design is best in class. So beyond the physical infrastructure design, Panduit certified design, especially when a project is going out for bid, it's often valuable to have a master format CSI specification for the project. This is something often that's delivered for the communications element of the design. So the Division 27 of master format focuses on the complete telecommunications system. So it gives a construction specification for the physical infrastructure as it's deployed. This can be delivered. It It often is useful, again, when you have multiple bids being requested for a project, because it ensures that the bids are all addressing the same type of installations and situation. One thing that we found is that when customers wanted to, when clients want to accelerate the schedule, it can be possible when the company doing the validated design is also doing the installation. That's a way to begin to de-risk and not require that CSI master format. We've seen clients do that, where to eliminate the time required to deliver the master format specification, they've committed to a vendor that's also owning the physical install in order to de-risk that way and put all of those responsibilities on one vendor. So adding to the Panduit certified design is, of course, the Panduit certification plus warranty. This is something that our Panduit One deploy partners can deliver to provide a 25-year performance warranty on the full system as deployed, ensuring that our clients receive reliable and scalable solutions that minimize the cost and risk. This is for those that have a specific set of expertise in designing and deploying Panduit solutions, and it is run by our partners who understand these industry best practices and standards and how to deploy in an effective way. We add the Panduit certified design onto this because you can only install so much, you can only plan for your install so much. If the client doesn't include in their budget and in their scope the racks, the cabinets, the physical infrastructure systems to actually deploy these terminations, it can be really challenging for the deployment partner who's doing the deployment to do it effectively if the client doesn't plan for that physical infrastructure and do so in a way that's appropriate to the environment. But then adding on to that, the certification plus warranty is definitely recommended for any application to give the client that long-term guarantee of performance. So in summary, what we want to do with our partner ecosystem is help you fill this persistent gap in scope between the end goal of the client, for example, performing a logical system upgrade, switch upgrade, and the physical cabling deployment. Fill that gap in scope, and then do that providing the assurance of consistent delivery. Reducing startup risks by thinking through areas that admittedly include a lot of different components, and thinking through a lot of different areas, from grounding to labeling to proper termination and cabinet layout. And what we want to do is make our Panduit One ecosystem and your membership in that ecosystem to set you apart, so that you're delivering something that nobody else in the industry can do. We want you to be the one for the client, not only doing your core business, but also communicating to your clients that you're able to think through the entire infrastructure, from the logical, that you might have more expertise and core knowledge in the MES system deployment, etc., through the network logical, all the way down to meet where the physical installers are deploying, and plan through that entire gap. This is something that has been a pretty difficult challenge in the industry for decades, and there's more and more visibility as IT gains visibility in the plant floor and gains responsibility on the plant floor. They're looking for solutions in these areas, and they're looking for companies who have the capability to think through the entire system and how that system is deployed. And we're setting up our Panduit One ecosystem to set them apart as they're doing both the logical and the network design. And as I've alluded to throughout the system, we're enabling our partners to brand their delivery of these services. So we are defining a scope. We're we're communicating that scope via these bulletins and providing these bulletins to our partners that you can deliver as your own bulletins to clients to help communicate that additional scope that you can add to your projects. And so as you move forward, what I'd ask is for you to identify, as your clients are upgrading their network or upgrading their MES systems or security in their plant, identify these clients, visit our partner ecosystem, join our partner ecosystem, or locate a Panduit One partner that can assist in the network assessment and design. Contact your local Panduit network sales representative or email Panduit IAI for Industrial Automation Infrastructure, IAI@panduit.com for more information. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Mike, so much. We'll use this time to answer questions, so please feel free to submit your questions on the chat box in the GoToWebinar app. Mike, we've had a few come in while you were presenting here. I'm going to start with the first one here. For Panduit certified, can you hear me okay, Mike?
Yeah, sorry, I just said great. Shoot, go ahead.
Okay. I got a little feedback on my side here. For Panduit certified design, who does the design work?
Sure, yeah, and I alluded to that, but maybe I went quickly through it. So I'll go back and share that slide. So the goal here is that our partners can deliver the full scope of these services. But we're looking especially for partners that already have some level of design capability, where you're providing some level of capability already for a customer, or if you've built out some of that CAD capability, we can supplement that with additional training. But this is something that you can actually deliver. We've talked to a number of customers or a number of our partners, and you're already delivering, for example, AutoCAD system layouts in many cases, or evaluating locations, performing one-line diagrams. We're in many ways organizing and filling gaps in what's already being done, and that's what we're delivering with the Panduit certified design. So our partners, our Panduit One design partners, are capable to deliver this service.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead here. We have a couple more that came in. How much does third-party validation cost for Panduit certified design?
Yeah, third-party validation is something that is done on a project-by-project basis. And really what we're looking to do there is just cover the cost of that, maybe 4 hour to a day engineering review. So you're looking in the scale of $1,000 to perform that review and get Panduit's backup to your physical infrastructure design. So there's the point here is validating the work that you're doing. We have capability and can support on design, but for the Panduit certified design, this is definitely something that you can deliver and we can validate at a minimal cost.
Okay. We just, Mike, had a question come in regarding Europe. The question is Panduit ready for Europe? I didn't see an international standard.
Yeah, so we talked about 2 standards only, but when you go through the standards, we in North America, of course, look at TIA and the National Electric Code when we're looking at code, et cetera. But we regularly, routinely look at the industrial EN standards that for what we're using in North America, there's always a corollary in Europe. Slight differences, but we're definitely able to support designs that occur in Europe as well.
Okay.
And regardless, the thought behind this is there are basic things that need to be thought through with the design wherever you are in the world. We want clients to think through their cabinet layout, mice, pathways, the cable and connectivity specification. All of this, it's logical, it makes sense, but it's often things that clients don't require, but don't think about, but wherever they are in the world, it is something that's required.
Okay. Okay, looks like there is another question that came in here. Is there a checklist for turning over documentation to Panduit in order to develop a network assessment, such as logical architecture, port layouts, and pictures by area?
Yeah, so there are two things. So for the Panduit certified design, there's a checklist with the design submittal form that's available to our partners. And that's going to provide us basic information about the project, but then a checklist that makes sure they include the right information. And we deliberately make this, we provide flexibility here. We don't necessarily want our partners to do everything exactly the way we're doing. We just want to make sure you're thinking through the system layout, the environmentals, the point-to-point connection map, et cetera. So we definitely, with the submittal form, have that checklist. And then the second question around the assessments, we definitely have a form that walks through the areas and examples, things to look for with each of the 7 areas to assess. There's a part of the template that looks more like this that gives you an opportunity to fill out details. And there's an additional section that goes into detail things to look for, almost in a checklist guideline to make sure that if you're less than confident, you can cover all the areas.
Great. One more question here, Mike, that came in. How do I get access to assessment capabilities offered by Panduit?
Yeah, so when you're looking to deliver an assessment, I recommend the first thing that you do is go through the training. When we go through training, we're also providing documentation and access to some of these materials. But we're also providing these through our partner portal, the partner portals that we've set up for the partners. So if you have any trouble finding this material on the partner portal, just feel free, reach out to anyone, any contact you have at Panduit, your account manager, that iai@panduit.com email address, or any other contacts within the business that you might have, and we can help you get access to the material that you need.
Perfect. Okay, it looks like that was the last question. I'll give a moment or two here if you have any last questions for Mike, if you want to go ahead and put that in the chat box. Well, Mike, I do not see any more coming in. Thank you so much for your time today, everyone. And we're going to go ahead and conclude this webinar. You have a great day.